let me start the round of Q&A with you. And so you mentioned referrals. Now, Morning Brew is a great example. They managed to grow their newsletter business via referrals. They have a really nice write-up on Medium about that. But that's something like I mean, like pretty advanced. Like at least when I look at it, they also said like they have developed some proprietary technology for that. It's not there in all the newsletter providers. So you're using Substack. Substack doesn't have a referral program as of yet. Maybe they're working on one. I don't know. So how do you see this like referrals as a way for driving people to your newsletters? I see it popping up more and more, but it's more in like bigger newsletters in bigger media which have the resources maybe to build the technology for it.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think it's worth noting that with these different pathways to monetization, you do have to keep in mind who your email service provider is and lean into the strengths that you have available to you. So Substack, for example, with your newsletter, it's set up to have subscriptions, right? But that doesn't mean you can't like break stuff. I think like it would be cool. I would love to see an experiment where someone decides to build a referrals, because you can track it on Substack. You can see how people share and how what happens with those shares. Like, wouldn't it be interesting to basically have like something at the bottom where you have a shout out for people who share your newsletter? I mean, I think people actually like people appreciate being thanked and named. Like, I think there's power in that. So I mean, I think that's like a simple offhand way. And then I also think like you can take your newsletter as like an individual product and then partner it with your Twitter feed, and before you know it, you basically say thank you in one place, and then you can build it in another, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't have to be so slick as much as it has to be true, right? Like, I think you could play to that and people would be open to it. I think that's what's also really cool about the phase we're in, is that there's a lot of experimentation going. Like, classifieds weren't something that I think anyone said you could necessarily do, but it's like literally a grid and you paste the content in and people can Venmo you. I mean, it doesn't have to be that technical, but of course it is better over time, probably.
So I know of one example actually on Substack, the Not Boring newsletter. They built their own referral program based on another technology. It was quite interesting, but then and it worked well. So just to get to your point, like, yeah, it's possible and people are breaking things and it's working. So that's a good note from you. Until we get other questions, I've seen Jakub asking some question. Maybe Jakub, you can jump in and ask your question so that I don't repeat it. I see you're smiling, so go on and ask your question. Maybe unmute yourself first.
There we go. Yeah, thanks, David. So Ruth, thank you. You already kind of answered my question, but maybe you can jump in and say a little bit more. Basically, I was sort of thinking around, how do newsletters die, right? And like, when do you pull the plug, and when do you transfer people? And I saw the answer partially, but maybe you can say a little bit more about, when do you decide to transfer the newsletter subscribers to a new life, and does it work? Do you see a lot of unsubscriptions as well? I guess that's a big point.
Okay, first of all, to be quite honest, we are not good at exiting. We are really not good, and okay, I just changed my position internally. I'm not responsible for newsletter anymore, but before I left my team a week ago, that was one of the big issues. We have to find exit strategies. But so far as we have a weekly reporting, and we look at all the numbers from all the newsletters, and it's more than 90 by now every week. And we look at the growing numbers. We compare from week to week. And whenever we see that the numbers are going down, we start looking in detail. Lots of time, it's about bounce rates. Something is wrong with t-online, with the server again. So if we see that from one location, all of them went down, our first thing is we call our tool provider and we ask them to debounce those emails. But sometimes, of course, we can see that it's still going down, and then we try to optimize the format, to do a relaunch, to try other time of the day when to send it out. And sometimes we send out a survey with Catherine's help, and we ask, how do you like it? And if all of that does not work, if we still see that the numbers are going down every week, we can, after 4 weeks, we put in the marketing budget and we optimized it and we asked for opinions, and then we might come to the point that we exit. And in that case, we send an email to all of them that we will stop this newsletter next week, and that we will send them another newsletter instead, which is most of the time the newsletter from the editor-in-chief, because every brand has one big newsletter or main newsletter from the editor-in-chief. And we know that the opening rates are very good on those. And our editors-in-chief, they put a lot of effort in that. So it feels good from my side sending them a real high quality newsletter instead. But we tell people before that we will do so. And we tell them that if they don't want, they can unsubscribe. And the first time we did that, I was very nervous. I was expecting to get bad emails, to see unsubscription rates that are terribly high. And actually nothing happened. I don't know how many, but with the 60,000 Corona, I think we lost like 3,000 of them after that. So it's not crazy, really not. And no one sent us a bad email or anything. So it seemed, as long as we are open and transparent, and as long as we send something that is similar. Of course, at that time, Corona is still a big topic, so they didn't get the Corona newsletter anymore, but they got the editor-in-chief newsletter that talked about Corona all the time. So it was very similar. So as long as you send a similar product with a high quality and you are transparent about it, it seems to be fine for the people.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Jakub. Good question. We got questions coming in, so I'll start from the bottom as I see them. Gianpaolo Accardo from Vox Europe is actually asking, how do you make sure subscribers will open the newsletters you send? How critical is the headline? So maybe Ruth, you can go, and we can have Caroline answer this as well.
The headline is really critical. It is, definitely. So yes, we do our A/B tests, give it a try. If you always use the same format, change the format, try everything. And the other thing,
have you tried emojis? Because I'm having a fight with my newsroom about emojis in the subject line. Okay.
You're right. I didn't try that because I just don't believe emojis. For me, it feels like it's a short-term approach and people will laugh once and then they don't like it anymore. But you are right. We should have tested it. We didn't. No, but the other thing is, if you always deliver a high quality, the opening rate also gets better. So we can see that we have one editor-in-chief he's great in writing, and he really talks to the people. He tells them how was his day and why he is really angry because the government shut down one of his journalists and didn't allow his journalists to go into the newsroom and the press conference. And sometimes he's emotional, but he always talks about his feelings and what he saw the other day, and he's talking to people and he's asking them, so what do you think about this? And then sometimes in this editor-in-chief newsletter, he tells them, I'm going on a vacation now, and you know what, I don't want my editors to work for me, so this newsletter will just stop for 2 weeks now. He gives them all those insights. And if you have a high quality like this, the opening rate is very high, and then it doesn't matter what the subject looks like.
Caroline, what would be your answer? Headlines, how critical they are? Emojis, yes or no? And anything else to add?
Yeah, I would +1 everything Ruth said. I would add that I am on Team Emoji, and
okay, good to know.
And I would actually, kind of a curveball, but related. I am a big fan of making sure that your sender is a real human. I think that is important when you look in your inbox, that you see it as a person. And even better if it can be there can be a photo. An example of an organization that I think does this really well is Axios. I would recommend checking out, for this group, the media newsletter is a good call. I believe it's Sarah Fisher who puts that out every other week. But the key is that one of the things that differentiates newsletters from other products is that it is a one-to-one connection with the reader. And so what that means is you get to level with each other. And I think that is a unique component of newsletters that we can leverage better, that will also help us have a more engaged reader base, because we are better able to be in touch with them.
Thank you. Thanks for team emoji. We have a question here which is very, I would say, suited for Catherine. So Catherine, gear up. Someone, Ali Tibit is asking that how he would like to, or she, I'm not okay. Ali would like to know what are some paid marketing strategies for growing your list, and what worked, and how is it connected maybe to audience research. So Catherine, you can enlighten us now.
I think that's a question for Ruth.
Okay.
I would assume.
Wait a moment. What was? Sorry, you said Catherine, and I have my kids running around here. Sorry, what was the question then?
So the questions were paid marketing strategies for growing your list, and how to research your audience as part of that.
How to research them, or how to grow the list. If it's research, then I'll have the answer.
Research, and you go first with research, and then I follow up with paid.
Sorry, I mixed up the question a little bit. So yeah, let's start with the research and then with the strategy.
So the question is how we research the audiences. Correct. Okay, we research the audiences along the customer life cycle. So for every life cycle of a customer, the phase where you get to know the customer, just as in a human relationship, when you meet for the first time, so we go in that phase like, well, how was it? When the trial phase ends, we want to know, hey, we had a few dates now. How was it? After we've moved together and had a relationship over 6 months with our customers, we'll be like, hey, how did it go so far? So, and how do we do this? We do it with the customer profile, because we have the information of the age of the subscription age and relationship age of all our customers for all our products in the customer profile. And as this enables automation, we don't have to search the list and have a look at who's 6 months with us today, who's a trial list today. So we do this all automated and send out standardized surveys to all products with standardized KPIs, of which we tested and know that they have a high impact on our success rates.
Can you give us an example, just to get, because people tend to talk about KPIs and products, and it's for pretty general. So
what's an important KPI also for newsletters or for paid content? The amount of articles that is suitable for me and interest me. So if you change if you change the medium, and if you go over to magazines, for example, you need fantastic pictures, which have a high impact and a very important KPI on the success rate, or the power of the topics which you mentioned. And it really depends on in which phase you are. The higher the loyalty, the less dependency on certain headlines and certain topics. The younger your relationship, the more you have to show your readers and audience what's special about you, and have to delight them. So we have a set of KPIs which is standardized over the products. So you can compare everything with each other, and the information coming back from all those surveys goes back on the profile. And based on the survey results, if a newsletter client customer tells us, I'm missing, there's not enough in this for me, and we see with the usage data that he's all in sports, we'll have automated measures sending him the sports newsletter instead. So all this information goes back in dashboards, which our editors can access and look for their individual products. And they go back on the customer profile, and it all goes round in a circle.
This sounds great. So do you also optimize? So when you see, so for example, news subscribers to your sports newsletter, that they are also interested in maybe, for example, for some reason in your theater newsletter, do you work with that somehow? Connecting these audiences and their interests?
Yes, this is exactly what we do, because this is the aim of the whole thing. We do it case by case. You can't do all of that at the same time. You have to start really small, otherwise you'll have a data project which usually never ends and never shows any results. So our way of working is working really closely with editors teams, with newsletter teams, understanding what could we be doing. Then we connect it with the insights we collect and build measures on insights and things we can really do to optimize the growth rates or retention rates, or yes, and of course we do cross referrals. With the part I showed, if you go if you deep dive into that. Behind all the graphs, we know what content types are behind there. We have the sports freak who needs 20 articles per day and needs 2 nice happy topics to go with it. So we have segments, and for these we build measures with our editor teams and newsletter editor teams.
Thank you. Ruth, so how about those paid strategies for growing your newsletter list?
I just want to add to Catherine, just for some insights. I love it. Catherine is giving us all those dashboards one by one. So when she started out, I was like, oh yeah, we can get a survey now. And I was thinking something along the lines of we get 5 stars or 4 stars or 2 stars. And she came back with an in-depth survey that asked the readers about how do you like the content? Was it the right time you got it? Was it the right tone? And I can't remember, but there were so many questions and people answered. We got hundreds and hundreds of answers, and people not only gave us all the crosses and all the answers, they also used the free field to send us even more sentences. People were delighted to get finally asked and that we were listening to them. So, and then she got the results and she set up monitors, and now we can look at it from week to week and we can see what changes in the numbers. So if you find someone like Catherine, get him in your company and don't let him go ever.
Whenever I see this, that the newsroom gets asks something, the readers, and gets feedback, and the feedback is valuable, people in the newsroom always go, oh, people actually want to tell us stuff.
Yes, they want to share, they want to talk to us. It's great. Okay, regarding the marketing, we did a lot of Facebook lead ads in the beginning, which is pretty nice because you send the form and you get a direct response. And we also tried some other things. For the Facebook lead ads, you always have to look at the CPLs because you get the single sign-on CPL, and then you have to see how many do the double opt-in, and then you have the double opt-in CPL. And it always starts great. It's always great numbers in the beginnings, and after 3 days or 5 days or 7 days, it starts hitting high level or way too expensive. And sometimes it's getting very expensive within 2 days. So you have to look at daily. And I told you before, we are not good at exit strategies for newsletters, but we are very good at exit strategies for marketing campaigns. We are really good at this one. So you have to stop campaigns. We are not only doing the Facebook lead ads, we are also doing, for example, the checkout campaigns. So if someone is in an online shop and he buys something and then he gets to the checkout page, then he gets an offering for an e-paper from the Funke Media Group plus the newsletter. And so it's a double win for us because we get leads on our e-paper paid product. We give it for 2 weeks for free to them, but we also give them for a newsletter registration. So that was a quite good campaign, I think. We also tried sometimes to do print. We asked our print department if they could do a big ad in the print, in the print. Didn't work out at all. Terrible, really terrible. We published an own link and we saw less than 10 clicks on this link. So we will not try that again. No good idea. We also, what I can really, if it's possible for someone of you, it's very important to use your own resources. So we have all those great brands. We have our brands like the old traditional newspapers, but we also have reach portals. And we reached out to some of our colleagues from Der Westen and Moin, and we asked them if they would place a banner on their websites, and they did. And that was quite interesting because it had a high reach. And of course it was, we did something for them and they did something for us. So it's also a good way if you don't want to spend a lot of money, and you can just give it a try and see what works and what does not.
That sounds actually great. There is a question also for which is connected to this, and Caroline, maybe you would be the best to answer it. What are some of the best ways? So you, in your presentation, you showed all the ways people or newsrooms can promote their newsletters, all the way from your website to all the way through to the newsletter signature. Do you have any data or research to back or to what's working the best? So you mentioned pop-ups, but can you give a list of like maybe top 3, 5 of things which like anyone should do to promote their newsletters?
I don't know if this is a great answer, but the short answer is no. In the sense that, like, I think it's highly personalized. It depends on what your product is and the best way of reaching that specific audience. So if the person asking, I think if you're working on a newsletter that's your own, like you started a newsletter on your own, then I think a great place to start is what sounds interesting to you. And then have like a clear, like with your language, be clear with your audience or your readers that you're experimenting and you're trying things, and that's part of the adventure. If you're coming more from a more established media organization with more resources, then I think the calculus is going to be different. And I think our other panelists are probably the best position to answer that question from that point of view. But off the cuff, I think that it's always better not to have to spend money if you can avoid it. So organic is great versus paid. And I think the other kind of like foundational principle I would consider is like what will benefit your audience the most, what will increase the loyalty and trust, what is going to be providing a value add. So like I mentioned, classifieds are nice because you actually learn something, like, assuming that it's also really important, we get into this in the class, but you want to make sure you establish prior review on those classifieds. So you make sure that they're on point, but assuming they are, you're adding a whole nother value. So I think that's another way you can think about the different pathways.
Okay, before I jump to Ruth and ask about like the funnels, what are the ways people got engaged with their or subscribed actually to their newsletters? In your presentation, you mentioned pop-ups really work, but have you done actually? Have you? Sorry, I'm trying to ask this in a way that it's answerable. So when you come to a website, it usually is like many things pop up at you. So is there like a best practice to maybe put the newsletter pop-up after the second page view, or maybe after 30 seconds, or maybe don't make it full page, pop-up?
So we did some experiments. This was, did work with, I mentioned the Shorenstein Group. We did a big research study with news organizations, and we tested out all these different things. We tried Facebook ads, we tried pop-up boxes, and I think the thing about pop-up boxes is, like, yes, they can be an irritant. So I think it's really important that you pay attention to the analytics that are coming back and consider it more of like in dialogue. If you're concerned that people are not going any farther into, or, then I think you definitely should try moving it to a later page. But what we found in those experiments was actually that, oh, you know what I do remember? I remember that one thing that was really effective was, let's say you're scrolling, let's say there's an article that's like the top story for the week. You scroll halfway down, add the pop-up box. Like, that's a time where you have people who are most engaged because you've shown the value add, and that can be an important moment to get an additional subscriber. But I think, on the homepage, that's really important too, because sometimes people are coming to your website for the first time. And so with that, you want to tell them, you want to promote it right away. Here is this service we offer you. And ideally you make it short and you make it quick, not like long, and very easy to exit out of.
So kind of like stay in touch, leave your email, and we'll come back to your inbox, basically, right? Yeah. Okay, Ruth. So how would you answer the question? So the question is like, what have you seen in your experience? What are the best ways to get subscribers? Like, you have all these different funnels, and let's try to focus on those which are native, right? So your website, maybe mobile apps, and so on.
It really changes with the time. In the beginning, we did inline forms, so people were reading the article, and then after 3 or 4 paragraphs, there was a disruption, and there was a little form saying, join our newsletter group now. And that was in the beginning, that was a great access. It was big as the most important channel we saw. And it changed after sometimes. After a few months, we saw the numbers dropping. And by now we are below 10% coming from this form. And we started at 70%, I think. So it seems not to be that important anymore. And well, of course, marketing is always working. We can always get them in if we just pay money for it. AMP forms worked pretty well. And putting always sticking or a link in the navigation, that was very important. That was one of the big changes, when we just put a newsletter link in every single website. And search engine optimization became big. I didn't see that coming. One of my colleagues, he started doing it. It was something that he really approached, and he got into it, and he started writing, making really nice landing pages, putting in the meta tags, checking the rankings every day. And after some time, it just took off. We got so much traffic from Google on our landing pages. So obviously, search engine optimization is a good idea.
What were the keywords? Like, were people actually looking for like newsletters, or was it like a different keyword?
Plus region, newsletter plus region. So we have all the sub-local newsletters. So it's not only newsletters from Hamburg, but from Pinneberg and whatever. So very small regions. And if you go for this, it's getting easier. Of course, the big one's newsletter doesn't work, but yeah, you just add the name of the newsletter or the name of the region that you're talking for. And the teaser, the last thing we just tried, we put we have regional websites. So we have the big brand, and then we have the regional websites, and we put a teaser on the website with the overview of the regional articles. So in position 4 in our case. And this one is there always. So they're changing articles up and down, and in the middle there's this little teaser, and it's always there. And we see a lot of people coming in, and I didn't see that one coming also, because I was like, well, it's a regional, just very far down the tree. But obviously this is where the people go if they want to have regional news, and our USP is regional news. So this one gets a lot of attraction. And the other thing, I think you also asked about engagement, how to get people engaged in the newsletter. Did you ask that before? I jotted it down. So one of the things that works pretty good is the question of the day. We have a little module that says question of the day, and we enabled it now that it's in all the templates. And people love that. It's like one little question: would you like to get vaccinated with AstraZeneca or not getting vaccinated at all? Stuff like that. And people are really reacting that. We get a lot of answers from that. So question of the day helps a lot. One of our brands, they found it out by themselves, which I really love. They found out if they do an editorial and if they just do the link in there, just like in the normal sentence, it's not as good as if they just stop the sentence and then write in the end, if you want to read further, read our article. So really a call to action in the editorial. And that works much better than just kind of hide it in there. So we did hiding links in there before, and they started changing the text. And really, at the end of the paragraph, they always said, read our article if you want to read more. And they have been doing this for a few weeks now, so it's not a one-time fly, and people are still clicking more, so they see a better click rate. Interesting, I think.
That's super interesting, actually, because the newsletters, like the modern newsletters, when I look at the Quartz, New York Times Daily, they hide it within. Like it's kind of like I thought like, okay, this must be working. They're doing that.
Yeah, don't interrupt them, just keep them reading. That's what I thought. And when I saw that they were doing it, I didn't like it in the beginning. And then I saw the numbers. So, exactly. Oh my goodness, good idea, guys. So you have to try it, obviously. And the last thing that I wanted to mention, we had 30 years of reunification in Germany this 2020. And we wanted to give our readers a present, and it didn't work out. What we wanted to, we have an interactive team, and they did a great map of Germany, and you could tell them in this map, you could say, please show me the difference between eastern part of Germany and western part of Germany by gender, by income, by interest for books. It's so many. They had like 35 KPIs that you could use. And what we wanted to do, we wanted to put this into our newsletter so that people could play with it in the newsletter. That didn't work for technical reasons, was a little bit too big of a project, I guess. But instead of that, we sent a pop-up, or we sent a one-time newsletter to all our subscribers on the day of your reunification. And we just put in a moving GIF in there that showed some examples. We used 3 use cases, and it just moved in the newsletter, and they could see how you can do it. It showed how you can do it. And in the end, it said, if you want to try further, click on this link. And we saw high reactions on that. People were really clicking on that. So that's what I meant when I said stay flexible. It was not the solution that we were going for, but in the end we found a solution and it worked. So that was okay. Wow,
this is great. I actually see a question for Catherine. Albana Shella is asking, how does it stand compared to other strategies, tools of marketing and promotion? So I guess like if you compare Catherine, if you compare newsletters to your other tools of marketing, how does it compare in terms of promotion?
Promotions is Ruth, is that a question for you again? I'm not the marketing guy, I'm the data guy.
We don't compare newsletters with other channels because that's a little bit complicated. As you can see, we have marketing, we have sales, and we have newsletter unit, and I can only talk for the newsletter unit. Sorry for that.
Marketing. Okay. Marketing strategies. How we market newsletters compared to newspapers, e-papers. Is that the question?
I think the question is really, so if you have, let's say, you're promoting your subscription. Yes, I understand the question. If you're promoting, for example, your subscription, you're using newsletters, you're using social, you're using, your mobile apps, and how does it compare newsletters to these other, subscription funnels? Yeah, Albana is saying I'm right. I explained the question right, so okay, I get a self-5.
We have lead databases where we add also over the marketing profile, the customer profile. We add all sorts of data from puzzles, from competitions, from our reach portals, from newsletters. It's a big lead database. And we use this data, depending where the customers come or where the lead contacts came from, we decide based on data, which data heritage is best for which channel. So if we make a newsletter offer, a paid content offer, an e-paper offer, a printed newspaper offer, this is how we solve it with the profile. I don't have the figures at hand which data heritages work best for which channels. I'd have to prepare and look into the data for that answer, for that big comparison. I would need another 10 minutes lightning presentation.
Okay. I mean, this conference is going on for another 8 days, so maybe if you ask Jakub, you can come back in 5 days and share with us.
10 minutes every day.
Yeah, maybe. I have one of my last questions. I don't see any more questions coming in. My last question is basically about the UX, the user experience of the newsletter. It's I don't see many people doing newsletters asking about that. I only actually seen the New York Times when they redesigned their daily newsletter. They actually sat down with people, asked them like how would they structure the newsletter. Is this something you think is like important? What to open your newsletters with? What should be in the middle? What should be in the end? I know with my own newsletter, I was surprised that like some of the most clicked links are the ones which are in the end, at the very bottom of the newsletter, and my newsletter is like super long. So maybe Ruth, if you can go first, and Caroline, if you have any experiments to address that would be, I would be super curious.
Okay, we didn't do any proper A/B testing on user experience because we just didn't get to it. I'm pretty sure that my former team will do it this year. What we did, we always look at the click rates. For example, we have a US newsletter, which is written by our correspondent from US, and he's at the beginning, he writes about what happened during the week in Washington, and then he is teasering some of our articles. And at the very bottom of it, he adds, what did other media write about Trump and Biden this week? And then he publishes 2 of the best articles he saw somewhere else. And at the very bottom, he publishes 1 funny tweet from anyone about Trump or Biden. And what we saw is that people are really scrolling down to this funny tweet, and the two topics at the end, they are the most clicked ones. So when we did a new concept for this newsletter, the first thing we told our correspondent, we have to stick to those, even though we put them at the end. People really loved those, and they were really scrolling down, and they really clicking on that. So you're right, we should do more on that, and I think we could gain a lot from that. But we have these templates and one article that we can implement or not, and it's really difficult. And so we are very happy that we are able to do the templates, but we are not able to do more graphics or more in the usability. It's just not possible at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Caroline.
Yeah, I think one way to think about this is I like to call them content blocks, the distinct components. And it matters what type of newsletter you're trying to provide, right? So if you're an aggregating newsletter, then how you think about which content blocks come first and what your kicker is and what your opening is. It's not unlike the way we think about a standard news story. If you're more into feature writing, if that's your newsletter, it's more of a standard feature, then your content blocks are going to reflect that. Another one is like trend stories. You can think of your newsletter as something that's pulling together new content, that's like actually producing, like, here's a new trend story and we're publishing it on this newsletter, and this is what this newsletter product is for. then, you know, obviously you want to put that new important content right up top. So I think user experience can feel intimidating, but to some extent you put yourself in the position of the person reading it. And you can also, of course, ask, like surveying is important. But thinking through those content blocks in the same way we would think about the way you would structure a story, I think is a really helpful framework. The other thing I would mention is something I'm keeping an eye on is what Review is doing since they were acquired by Twitter. I saw something today, I think, that was talking about how they're changing their templates to be more familiar. I don't know if that's their word or mine, but that's what I took from it, to be a little bit more conversational. So, you know, I think I'm curious. I think it's an evolving platform in that regard. Like, I think audience tastes and what is appropriate is shifting and easily experimented with as well. And I think kickers are important. I have a favorite one I will briefly mention, which is, since we're talking about New York Times newsletters, I get their COVID newsletter, and at the end, they always have a story. And I love the story. I look forward to it. And sometimes I use it as an inspiration. Anyway, in case you're curious.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Okay. One last question, then I'll let Jakub finish the evening. But I just realized that, Ruth, you talked about how you can convert subscribers to members, newsletter subscribers to paying members, paying subscribers. You mentioned that the rate from newsletters is 4 to 6%. I'm only curious, like, there are all these ways people like do it in the newsletter. Like, where do you or how do you actually mention this to people, like right away in the beginning of the newsletter? So when I look at the newsletters from The Economist, they have like a kind of subscribe button at the top of the newsletter. I've seen, for example, others putting it the very bottom of the newsletter. Some put it in the middle, like join, subscribe. So how did you do this conversion?
There are two things we are looking at. We have 2 ad spots in our newsletters, and one ad spot we are selling to external customers, and one ad spot we are using for our own products. And from time to time, we put in there a banner for paid subscription, so we can see if people are clicking directly in the newsletter on the paid content banner. And we also look at when they click on the teasers for the articles in the newsletter, they get to the landing page, and many of those articles have a paywall on it. So we look if they subscribe, if they read this article.
So the user journey is actually not directly from the newsletter to being subscribed, but it's like newsletter website where can you share the amount, like how?
Not possible in our tracking. No, we just have to put them all in one funnel. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Still it's interesting. But basically your answer is like, put good content, which then converts the newsletter subscribers, but also
use your own slot.
Include the promotion for the subscription itself.
Yep.
That's perfect. I mean, I have a million questions, but the backstage is telling me to shut up already. So
same here for the kids.
If this was if this was a live conference, I would tell you, let's go to the bar and continue this wonderful conversation. But as we all need to go and drink wine, as Catherine is doing since the beginning of this evening, then I'll leave you with this. Thank you. It was super insightful. I learned a lot. I hope our attendees learned a lot as well. And Jakub, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you so much, David and Ruth, Catherine, and Caroline. Thank you so much. I've been just noting down ideas and sending messages to the team. Let's try this. Let's go for this. So it's been really one of the most exciting and insightful Zoom sessions that I've attended since COVID made this the only way that you can basically meet people. So thank you so much, and I really do hope that someday we can go to the bar and continue this discussion, and in the meantime we can all go and drink alone. Just one small update. We will be sort of sharing, if everyone is okay with that, the presentations in a folder. We will reshare the links to the different newsletters, as well as to the different places where you can find all of the speakers. So Caroline's course, which definitely worth checking out, and all the other things. And I also wanted to make an exciting announcement, since we finished on the topic of subscriptions, and putting that in the newsletter. That's something that will be showing up in the Fixes newsletter as well, starting from next week when we send it out. But for those who are excited to see it, I think we'll have the Patreon link out as well. That's for all the people who really enjoy what we've been doing, and want to continue attending all of these meetings and joining up and taking part in setting the editorial priorities as well. That's something that we're really looking forward to. And yeah, thank you. This was such an amazing session. Thank you so much, and hope that we get to do this again sometime soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Bye, guys. Have a great evening, and take care, and stay healthy, and use masks.